In the temple of silence, in the temple of peace, I will meet thee, I will touch thee, I will love thee, and coax thee to my altar of peace, and coax thee to my altar of peace. Class number 3, and we're going to be talking about the importance of attitude in meditation. Many people think that meditation is just sort of a mechanical practice. In fact, if you don't have the right attitude, you'll never be able to go very far. For example, it's quite obvious, surely, that if you were to come to meditation in a sort of a resistant frame of mind, even a hostile frame of mind, you'd not get very far. Do you remember what Jesus said, that if when you go to the temple, you have something against your brother, go back and smooth things out with your brother before you go to the temple? What he meant in that passage is much more broad than just some little misunderstanding you might have with your brother. What he meant was that you should go to the temple with that kind of attitude that induces inner calmness. And the temple we're talking about is the temple of your own body, the temple of peace. So there are certain basic attitudes that you need to develop as a part of your normal outlook on life if you really want to meditate deeply. Otherwise, it's going to be taking one step forward and one step back and really not getting anywhere. For example, meditation is a means of uniting yourself with life. Therefore, you should feel that unity. Meditation is a means of learning to be completely honest with yourself, to go beyond your delusions. Therefore, you should be completely truthful. Meditation is a means of withdrawing your identity from things, outward things. Therefore, you shouldn't be covetous. Meditation is a means of learning to be self-controlled, self-contained, and not feeling that your energy has to run out toward sensory delights. Therefore, non-sensuality. Meditation is also a means of raising yourself above the body and the personality and all the inner desires and attachments and interests that you have. And so we come to some of the basic teachings on the path of yoga and of meditation, which were outlined by one of the great sages of ancient times in India. His name was Patanjali, and he wrote the only book that is really recognized universally as a scripture on yoga. Yoga means union. Union with, of your lower self with your higher self. Union with life. Integration of your personality so that you don't work at odds with yourself. Union in the sense of no longer having all sorts of desires that take you out, but you're complete in yourself. Union of the little self with the infinite self. Union of the aspiring devotee with his Lord. All these could be comprised in the simple word yoga or union. So many people think yoga means doing a lot of physical postures, and in fact those are not classically really a part of yoga, although they've been sort of admitted as helpful in making the body harmonious so that you can forget the body and meditate more deeply. But real yoga is what is known as Raja Yoga. And other pathways that are also called yoga, like the yoga of devotion, the yoga of intellect, the yoga of action, all these things are in a sense bypaths because they depend upon different aspects of human personality, human nature. And you may be more active by nature, more contemplative by nature, more emotional and feeling by nature. But all of these things should lead you toward that state of inner calmness. And anybody who follows a path of union through these qualities will find that he achieves that state of calmness, which is known as meditation. Meditation is the path of Raja Yoga. Raja or royal yoga is that highway on which these bypaths of human attributes meet in that soul stillness that is beyond human attributes. You see, it's not a matter of sectarian difference and my way's better than yours or anything like that. All of these ways meet, and in fact Raja Yoga embraces learning to develop your feeling, learning to develop clarity of intellect and perception, learning to serve. All of these things are a part of your total self-development. But what we're talking about here now is the need for getting yourself completely calm, internalized, and having that kind of attitude that will make it possible for you to recognize that oneness on all levels, be it inwardly by an integrated personality, inwardly and physically by a harmonious body that's really working together, all the parts working in harmony with one another, or unity in the sense of love for all creatures as a part of your own self, unity in the sense of embracing that oneness. All of these aspects of the meaning of yoga are embraced, first of all, in attitude. In other words, one of the things that you seek to achieve, as I said, is a sense of love in unity. Well, then you can't come to meditation with an attitude that is inimical to love. You have to have a loving heart. Well, one of the first rules Patanjali gave was harmlessness. Not wishing ill to anything. You might say, well, why didn't he say love everybody? But the thing is, when we love in a human way, then we love some people and don't love others. We love them because they have certain qualities. We don't love others because they lack those qualities. We hate others perhaps because they are opposed to those qualities. Where if we get rid of the natural tendency of the human ego to wish harm to others in its effort to defend itself or promote its own self-aggrandizement, then automatically there comes that kind of all-embracing attitude, which is love. So, harmlessness. He said the same thing for truth, that it's a negative quality in the sense that he taught non-lying, non-desire to tell lies. And that way, automatically, you want the truth. Truth is that which remains when you weed out every wish to hide yourself from the truth, to delude yourself, to pretend that something is other than you are, that you are different from what you are, and so on. When you get rid of that wish to kid yourself, then automatically you tune in on what really is. So that becomes truthfulness. Another quality that he talked about was not coveting anything that isn't yours. Just be content with what you have. Know that what is yours by right will come to you in its own time, in its own way. You can work for it, but don't work with desire. Because when you're working with desire, you're not living here and now, you're living in the future, you're living out there in space where that car might be found, or that new fur coat, or that new house, or whatever it might be. The more you can learn to live complete in yourself, the better off you'll be. Another thing that he said as a basic attitude is to be self-controlled, self-contained in a different way. That is to say, non-sensual. Self-controlled, concentrated in yourself, recognizing that your real power comes from within and not from outside yourself. The more you can live in that way, not spilling your energy out in sensory and sensual ways, the more you can live in your own inner power, the more you will see that you have power over everything that you try to accomplish. Whereas if you scatter your forces, too much talk is a way of not being self-controlled. Too much action is a way of losing your self-control, losing your cool, you might say. Too much sensual indulgence on a sexual level also is not good, because it spills your forces. You scatter them. Anything that takes your mind too much outside. Now, does this mean you shouldn't talk? You shouldn't do anything? No, of course not. But it means that you should be moderate. You should be self-controlled in the sense of being concentrated on what you do, but not being bound by anything. And if ever you find something that binds you, that conditions your happiness, then give that up for a while until you feel that you don't need it. Another quality that he talked about is acceptance. To learn to accept. I'm sorry, I put that wrong. Acceptance is a quality, but what he was talking about is non-acceptance. I'm contradicting myself, but what he meant in the non-acceptance was not accepting even that which is yours. So you shouldn't covet that which isn't yours, but don't accept as yours even that which apparently is yours. In other words, don't identify yourself with your body. Don't identify yourself with your personality. Be, as it were, watching. Always have a part of your mind that's sort of watching everything and saying, that isn't what I am. That isn't my reality. I'm watching it. Be again in this world, live in this world as if you were a guest in this world. That you're here for a time, but you know that what you have and what you do and the people you are surrounded by aren't yours in eternity. So that a part of your mind is always living in eternity. And another thing is always, therefore, to sort of withdraw yourself from attachments. All of these things are a part of the attitude. Now, I talked of acceptance, and that is, too, a very basic part. It could be tied into truthfulness, because when you accept things as they are, and not wish that they be anything other than what they are, then you can be calm. And why do people get upset? Largely because they would like things to be different from what they are. They get angry, they get cross, they get depressed, they get falsely elated, all because they have desires that are either being disappointed or fulfilled. But in no case are they the reality. I have often thought of the quiz shows on television and how excited people get, and you see them jumping up and down. But that great excitement that they feel because they got a new dishwasher, that wears off in time. The dishwasher becomes old stuff. Maybe it's broken down anyway. Maybe there's something wrong with it, who knows? But the fact is that if they allow themselves to condition their happiness by these things instead of accepting them, it's good to have a dishwasher if you need one, but don't let your happiness depend upon such things, because then you'll find that you'll never get it all right. Whereas if you can be strong in yourself, you will find that then you can enjoy everything in this world and without the fear of losing it. This is important, because even in the enjoyment of things, the worldly person has very little joy because he's always afraid of losing it, always thinking, when will it break down? Always thinking, when will it get stolen from me? And so on. So then there's a positive side to all these qualities. One is cleanliness. Now, physical cleanliness is good for meditation. If you cleanse yourself, if you take a shower before you meditate, you will find that it's easier to raise your consciousness. Of course, an unclean body, if you've been working in the fields or wherever, then that makes you body conscious, and it tends to pull the mind down. But there's something more to it too. When you go out into, well, a very obvious example is a smoky environment. You go to a party, everybody's smoking, you come home, and that smell of smoke clings to your hair, clings to your clothes, clings to your body, and it'll be there. Well, not only that, but something of the world clings to your clothes and to your body when you come back to your meditation room, to really free yourself from all those vibrations, all those impulses of other people's thoughts and desires. To free yourself of all of that, it would help to take a bath before you meditate. Cleanse yourself. In that cleanliness, you will find that it's much easier to raise your consciousness and meditate deeply. But cleanliness is on a much more than physical level. To have pure thoughts, clean thoughts. What is purity? Jesus said, "Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God." Purity of heart, well, you could look at it this way. Earth, if it's out in the garden where it belongs, it's just earth, and good, clean earth. We talk of it as that, don't we? But if you bring it into the kitchen, aren't you likely to be scolded by your wife if you're a boy or a man? Or aren't you going to feel in any case that you've brought dirt into the house? What was clean and good outside becomes dirt when it doesn't belong there. And so when we have desires that don't pertain to our true nature, then they're not clean. And there are some desires that are cleaner and some desires that are less clean than others, strictly in relation to whether those desires help us to rise or pull us down from that. A desire for things particularly isn't the important thing, but if you, for example, desire money in order to help other people, then that can be an uplifting, an expansive kind of desire. But if you desire money just to be rich and be a miser, then it can be a limiting, a self-limiting desire. So it's not so much the thing as the direction of your energies and desires. That is clean and pure, which helps to lift your mind up into calmness, to love beautiful scenery without being attached to it and thinking, I won't be happy until I can get back to the country. To love beautiful music, but to be able to enjoy silence too. Nevertheless, basically, these are good desires. They can uplift you. Whereas to love the kind of music that makes you tense and nervous and lower your consciousness, this, like rock music, has been proved scientifically to have a lowering effect on the energy in the body and the mind, to agitate the nervous system. It's bad for you, in fact. Whereas classical music, some of it is very uplifting, spiritual and devotional music, chanting, as I was doing at the beginning of this class. All of this is very good. So cleanliness means to have those kinds of thoughts and feelings that make you feel clean, that make you feel pure, that make you feel uplifted. And the more you can live in that kind of environment, and the more you can surround yourself with people who live and think that way, the more you will find that this teaching of Patanjali's will be a reality for you and will change your whole consciousness. Contentment. It's been described as the greatest of all virtues, because when you're content, then it's easy to think in terms of kindness, it's easy to think in terms of forgiveness, it's easy not to be angry, it's easy to have all noble and uplifting qualities and thoughts. Whereas if you're malcontent, then you will find that nothing pleases you. And in that lack of pleasure, lack of happiness, then you get angry, you get frustrated, you get depressed, you get discouraged. So contentment. Many people imagine that they'll only become contented when everything goes right for them, when their desires are fulfilled, when those nasty neighbors move away and nicer ones come in, when they finally get that raise at the office, etc., etc., etc. No, contentment is something that you have to practice as an actual quality. So that whatever comes, say, I accept it. And you will find, you might as well anyway. I remember some person a few decades ago grandiosely said, I accept the universe. And somebody said, well, by God, you'd better. In fact, however, very few people accept a great deal in life, what to speak of the universe. The universe can take care of itself, but they can't accept their daily surroundings. They can't accept the people they're with. They don't like their work. They don't like their homes. They don't like their wife or husband. They don't like their neighbors. There's so many things that can displease you if you get a mindset to be displeased. And if you ever think to get it together so that you can finally be happy, you'll be waiting a long time, probably past the end of this life and into who knows whether many incarnations. But if you practice contentment as a deliberate quality, just say from today on, I don't care what goes on, I am going to be contented in myself, then you will find that also in your meditation you can go more deeply. Do you think that you can find joy in meditation as one of the attributes of God? If you sit there and think, when am I going to find joy like this and all, just sure that you'll never find it and wanting God to prove it to Him, prove it to you that He can make you joyful. He won't. You've got to have the attitude of deep meditation before you can attain deep meditation. You have to have an attitude of calmness. You have to have an attitude of forgiveness, an attitude of love, an attitude of contentment. So, studying yourself. Swadhyaya is the word in Sanskrit. Self-study is the literal meaning of it, and many people think, oh, it means studying the scriptures, but swa means the self. And what it's really talking about is to understand yourself, Now, you know, from a mental level, it's very difficult to understand yourself. It's very difficult even to see yourself as you are. But if you can see yourself from a higher level, from that calmness you can easily judge whether this quality is leading toward that calmness or away from it. So that qualities which to the normal rational mind may seem perfectly good, you suddenly realize aren't good. They may be good in the sense that they can help you to make a killing in the stock market, but they may not be those things which are inducive to a higher state of awareness. So self-study is possible really only in deeper meditation, when you can sort of look down. But at that point, look at yourself, analyze yourself, if you will, see where you're going wrong. You'll be able quickly to see what things you need to change, what things you need to adjust, what things you need to develop, new qualities you need to acquire. And then to also read the scriptures, yes, of course, but also have devotion to the Supreme Lord. I forgot one of the qualities, which is austerity. Austerity, not in the sense, see, there's some of these words you can't really translate well, because austerity has a connotation of grimness. And I'm not talking of grimness, I'm talking rather of don't spill your energy is the first one, non-sensuality. But the other is contain that energy. Don't only not send it outward, but take it back and direct it upward toward your goal. Jesus said not only that we should love the Lord our God with all our heart, mind, and soul, but he added a fourth quality. He said strength. And some people think strength means your work and so on. But what somebody who meditates understands immediately what that means is that the strength of your body is your energy. And if you can not spill that energy outward, but bring it back and redirect it upward, then you are practicing real austerity, which is to say simply the redirection of misspent energy in a wholesome and constructive direction. In meditation, that means toward God. Then the final one is devotion to the Supreme Lord. Devotion is a very important quality. Some people don't understand it. They think that devotion means some sort of mawkish sentiment. No, devotion really means being completely focused on something that you very deeply want. When you want it with all your heart. Something that you, if you, let's put it this way. You live next door to a restaurant. You know it's a very famous restaurant. You know what menus it has. You know that people come from far and near to eat in that restaurant. But if you aren't hungry, you won't go there, even if it's close. But once you're hungry, and if you're really hungry, you'll go. You'll even go to a restaurant that offers a lot less because you want it with your body. The same thing is true with your wants of the heart. When you really want to meditate, then you'll meditate. There was somebody who, a young boy, a young man, I should say, came to a saint once and asked him to teach him to meditate. And the saint saw that he wasn't ready yet because he hadn't that desire yet. And so he said, well, come with me. He knew that argument wouldn't do it. He said, come with me. They went down to a river. And he took this young man, and before he knew what was happening, he held the man's head underwater, pushed it down underwater, and held it there until the man started kicking and writhing in agony. And then he let him come up. And the man spluttered like this in his desire for air. Then the saint said to him, what did you want most when I had your head held underwater? Air, air. He said, when you want God like that, come back to me. Then you'll be ready to learn. Well, I'm not really recommending such a drastic thing to you, because even without very much desire for meditation, but enough faith to practice it, you'll reach the point where it gives you so much delight, so much sense of fulfillment that you want it more and more and more. So at whatever point you are right now, if you meditate, as we saw earlier in the first class when I was talking with Danny, that it's for everybody. And most people don't have devotion, but the thing is that that devotion does grow. You, however, have to help it to grow consciously. It's a great mistake that people make to think that by the intellect we can really understand. An intellectual understanding is like armchair philosophy. An intellectual understanding is like knowing that menu, but not having the hunger to eat. I've met a lot of intellectuals. In fact, I remember one discussion I had with some students at Caltech in Pasadena on these spiritual principles and ideals. And they came up with all sorts of arguments against God, against the spiritual path, against higher realities and so on. And I had the blessing, perhaps, to be able to answer them well. What did it do for them? I didn't ever see any one of them. Not one of them later came and said, well, how can I learn to meditate? They probably went home and licked their wounds and thought of other arguments that they could come back with. See, the intellect is never going to be satisfied. And what you want for satisfaction is to fill your heart. So have devotion to the Supreme Lord. Why the Supreme Lord? Why not your own self? God is your own self, but you are not that any more than the wave can say it's the ocean. The ocean has become all of the waves. So when you meditate, offer your heart's feeling up to the Lord. And we'll talk a bit in the next class about what we mean when we say the Lord, what we mean when we say God. And I'll go into that at greater length. But for now, let's chant together. Yogananda used to say that chanting is half the battle. And it would be good, in fact, if you could learn some of these chants and you could write to us and find out, get a book from us and learn them that way, or get some of our recordings. But meanwhile, sing this chant with me. Door of my heart, open wide I keep for thee. Door of my heart, open wide I keep for thee. Door of my heart, open wide I keep for thee. Wilt thou come, wilt thou come, just for once come to me? Wilt thou come, wilt thou come, just for once come to me? Will my days fly away without seeing thee, my Lord? Will my days fly away without seeing thee, my Lord? Night and day, night and day, I look for thee, night and day. Night and day, night and day, I look for thee, night and day. Door of my heart, open wide I keep for thee. Door of my heart, open wide I keep for thee. Wilt thou come, wilt thou come, just for once come to me? Wilt thou come, wilt thou come, just for once come to me? Will my days fly away without seeing thee, my Lord? Will my days fly away without seeing thee, my Lord? Night and day, night and day, I look for thee, night and day. Night and day, night and day, I look for thee, night and day. Door of my heart, open wide I keep for thee. Door of my heart, open wide I keep for thee. Wilt thou come, wilt thou come, just for once come to me? Wilt thou come, wilt thou come, just for once come to me? Will my days fly away without seeing thee, my Lord? Will my days fly away without seeing thee, my Lord? Night and day, night and day, I look for thee, night and day. Night and day, night and day, I look for thee, night and day. Night and day, night and day, I look for thee, night and day. Night and day, night and day, I look for thee, night and day. Now close your eyes still and meditate deeply as I've taught you in the previous classes.